Morning, everyone. Morning, friends. I want to welcome you to Fairfield Friends meeting. Whether you're here or in person or on Zoom, we're glad you're here. My name is John Essex. This is Phil Gulley. And we want to ask those in the meeting house here to silence your phones, put them on airplane mode, or turn them off altogether. And that'll give a better experience for those joining us on Zoom. Also, I like to say that nothing bad's going to happen while we're in here, so don't worry about your alerts. You can turn them back on in an hour. We'll start with our first hymn today. It's Worship and Song, number 11. Joyful, joyful, we adore thee, and stand if you're able. It's easy to feel despair about the state of things, to feel powerless, like we're being swept away in a turbulent time. If you don't know me, you should know that I love science and I love movies. And there's a bit of comfort for me at the intersection of science and movies that I wanted to share this morning. When we think about why things happen, like how we got to where we are today, why the world is the way it is, physics tells us there's this unbroken chain of causes and effects all the way back to the Big Bang. Things happen in a series of events that ultimately leads to you and me in this moment. Chaos theory tells us that any small change will happen and that over time it can lead to very big effects. So imagine your life is sort of a thread and we're all sort of tied together. Martin Luther King Jr. calls this the garment of destiny. The thread of your life is not individual, it's part of this tapestry. You pull one thread, the whole image of the tapestry changes. It's not like you can unravel just your little bit. That's because your thread is part of everybody else. It's part of everything else. So when we take time to reflect on the past, we tend to understand the chain of events clearly. Like once it's already happened, we can look back and say this led to this, led to this. And there's a reverence for the past that we don't always apply to the present, like today when we might be feeling powerless. So think about it this way. Here's where the movie part comes in. In sci-fi movies, if the story involves time travel, there's always a point in these movies where an expert issues a dire warning. If you go back into the past, you shouldn't touch anything, interact with anyone, don't try to look at anything because you might accidentally delete yourself from the future. Or maybe some innocuous thing you do could fundamentally change the present. So that kind of speaks to this reverence that we all sort of have for the past events of our lives. We never like to imagine that if we squish a bug or talk to someone, we're reshaping the future. But this reverence we have towards the past should be how we approach the present. We are constantly reshaping the future. What we do, no matter how small, is important. It can be overwhelming to imagine that every single little thing we do has unforeseen ripple effects that will change the world and reshape our futures, but it's also true. So you are not powerless. What you do matters, and you can shape the future in very meaningful ways. Let's think about that as we center down. Friends, it's now time for announcements. So we will start with the folks visiting on Zoom. If you have any announcements, please feel free to share. Unmute your microphone and introduce yourself, and we'll hear the announcement.
Hi, this is Dinah Geiger, and I'm just reminding people about turning in your recipes. Hopefully you have seen the notes that have been in the newsletter and in the updates for yearly meeting. But just a reminder, Western Yearly Meeting Christian Outreach Board always has outreach tables at yearly meeting to sell items that are donated for that purpose. And the proceeds always are divided among our Indian centers, our Native American centers. And currently we have Kickapoo Friends Center in Iowa and Meskwaki Friends Center in Iowa, and Kickapoo is in Oklahoma. Anyway, we decided this year, since we're going to Quaker Haven, that's where a yearly meeting will be held this year, and we're not going to take a bunch of items. We're decided to make a cookbook. This may be the first Western Yearly Meeting cookbook that they've made. I don't know. I've never seen another one, but maybe way back in the day they may have made one. But anyhow, we have about half of as many recipes that we need, and we'd like to have them by March 15th because we want to be able to sell the books at yearly meeting at Quaker Haven. So in the newsletter for March, you will see the address. Marilyn Tucker is where you can send the recipes, or you can send them to me or give them to me or whatever. But all the more information is in there. Thank you.
If there are no further announcements from Zoom, we can open it to the folks in the meeting. Feel free to share your announcement with a microphone in hand and introduce yourself so the people on Zoom know who's speaking. Thank you. Are there any announcements?
What's a Sunday without an announcement from me and Tarvin? For the one or two of you who might not know, there is a whole kitchen full of soup and bread out there, and another nice table with desserts, including some beautiful Syrian ones with pistachios on top. And if you don't leave one for me, I will never forgive you. There's plenty for everyone, so stay, eat. I wanted to remind you that next week is the next installment in our Quakerism series. Chat room will begin at 9. It will be on Zoom. And Jackson actually can tell us a little more about what's going to go on this week. We have had Tom Ham's done. He's been here twice. We loved it. We want more of it, but he's done. So we're moving on now.
I'm Laura Day. Just a quick announcement. Those who are going on the Alabama Civil Rights trip, I do need your check so I can pay the Selma caterer and the tour leader. The deadline is next Sunday. So if you could get that to me by next Sunday. And also just keep checking your emails. I'm a dinosaur. I don't do texting, so check your emails for updates about the trip between now and March 13th. Thank you.
Beth Simons. I just want to remind those in the writing group that we are meeting today after the pitch-in. There is no copy paper in the office, and I was going to get the newsletter on its way, but if anyone knows how to acquire that, I'd appreciate it.
This is Jackson. Our speaker for our classroom next week is Myron Guachaya. He is a Quaker from Bolivia, and the original topic was young adult Quakers around the world, but Myron has been doing lots of work amongst Hispanic Quakers in Indiana, so we may be talking about that. So please come next Sunday at 9.
Joanne Gulley. Two announcements. One is Outreach Committee is meeting via Zoom this Wednesday at 7 o'clock. So if you are on the Outreach Committee, be sure to look for that email from Steve. The next message is about the women's book discussion, which we haven't picked a book yet, but that doesn't matter. We're just going to talk about what we've been reading, because that will be fun too. And that is this coming Sunday at noon. Everybody bring your sack lunch, and we'll talk about what we've been reading, and maybe we'll pick a book, and maybe we won't. Who knows? But it will be a good time. So thanks.
Oh God, this morning we are especially grateful for community, for friends and family and people we love who give us hope and courage, who lighten our way and who are devoted and committed to lightening the way of others. We thank you this morning, oh God, for radiance, for beauty, for goodness and grace, wherever it is found. For it is easy, O God, in certain times to lose hope, to forget the beauty of other people and their commitment to the world's well-being. We lift up especially then today, O God, those who labor to be of help to others. Amen. Oh, like Sherry Christian, working for the church and then donating part of her payback. I hope that doesn't become a trend that is expected here from church employees. Although, Jackson, if you want to do that, feel free. Feel free to step right up there, buddy. Oh, my. Well, JB, sorry about your mom. I was thinking this week of Mr. Hoban, an elderly neighbor of ours when I was growing up on Broadway Street in Danville. And Dick Hoban was his name. He was a veteran of World War I and World War II. And he was so gentle and so kind that his activity as a soldier seemed incongruent with the man I knew who wouldn't hurt a fly. I went to his garage one day. I just walked down the sidewalk and saw him in his garage, and so I went in there and found him in there bottle feeding baby rabbits whose mother had gone missing. And looking back, I had the feeling he was like so many people, caught up in situations he hadn't caused but couldn't easily avoid, a feeling we're all experiencing these days. We're in circumstances we didn't cause and certainly don't support, but now can't avoid. So we're keeping an eye out for the metaphorical baby rabbits of the world and making sure they are taken care of. That's our job now. The other thing I remember about Mr. Hoban was architectural in nature. The backside of his garage was close to the ground, and by standing on the stack of firewood he kept there, I could climb up on his garage and lie on my back and stare up at the sky, which I would do from time to time when I felt overwhelmed and needed privacy and perspective. Even today, when feeling battered and outnumbered, I climb that woodpile in my mind and in my imagination lie on that roof, gaze at the heavens and feel a certain peace. It was what we call now my happy place, and I've been visiting there quite a bit lately. I went there again this week in my mind when Donald Trump called the Ukrainian president a dictator and accused him of starting the war against Russia. And while we can certainly reflect upon the expansion of NATO and its role in this tragedy, we also know who invaded who and which leader is striving to defend his nation and which presidents are striving to expand their personal wealth and political power. We have eyes and we have ears. To continue with our metaphor, we know who is tending the battered creatures, and we know who is doing the battering. We Quakers value truth-telling, so let's always tell the truth. Defending evil and tyranny is not a Quaker virtue. We are for peace. We believe the light of God is also in Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump, however much they have let it dim. But we are also for justice, without which peace is not possible. We are also people of hope. We are people of hope. So in the weeks ahead, I will be sharing with you the developments, people, and circumstances that give me hope, that temper my gloom. And what inspires me today is the conviction that we are not alone. For every oligarch who has sold their soul, for every official who has lost their way, who act with timidity when courage is required, there are many other people who are decent and brave. There are far more people who value compassion and truth than those who worship at the altar of greed and tyranny. We mustn't make the mistake the prophet Elijah made, who in his moment of difficulty and darkness complained to God that he alone was faithful, causing God to remind Elijah that there were thousands of people, thousands, every bit as righteous and noble as Elijah himself. I remember Elijah's story because I often catch glimpses of Elijah in myself when I am inclined to think resistance to our current troubles rests solely on me. forgetting there are tens of millions of Americans who are equally determined to resist Donald Trump's tyranny du jour. All around our nation are governors, senators, representatives, soldiers, police officers, prosecutors, and judges committed to justice and the rule of law, forming a bulwark against this cruelty. In addition, there are Americans who might never have sworn an oath to protect and preserve the Constitution, but are every bit as resolute in their defense of decency and democracy. They recognize a dictatorial impulse when they see one, are disgusted by it, and will stand against it to their last breath. What also gives me hope is the witness of history, the dismal track record of tyranny. In the end, tyrants are never celebrated, only scorned. Their statues are pulled to the ground. The adulation they crave never endures. Tyrants are not invincible. They only think they are and want us to think they are. Bashar al-Assad, whose family ruled Syria since 1971, and thought himself beyond the reach of the citizens he ruled, now cowers in Moscow. The mills of God grind slowly, but they grind exceedingly fine. Next month, a group of Fairfield friends will be visiting the civil rights sites in Alabama, and I promise you one thing when you go there, friends, I promise you one thing. You will find no statue of Bull Connor or Lester Maddox. They don't exist. Those men whose legacies are relegated to the dustbin of history. And do you know who replaced Lester Maddox as the governor of Georgia? Jimmy Carter. The mills of God grind slowly, but they grind exceedingly fine. I am encouraged. I am encouraged by the movements of resistance being born right now, led by people whose names we don't yet know, but will one day know and honor. I am encouraged by the true church, not the Paula White Church and the First Baptist Dallas Church, whose abandonment of the gospel is crystal clear, but I am encouraged by the true church, by Pope Francis, who defends immigrants, by Methodists and Quakers and Mennonites and Presbyterians and Lutherans who march and write letters, who feed and clothe immigrants and hide them away. I am encouraged. I am encouraged by New York prosecutors who resign rather than break the law. History will judge them well. I am encouraged by the governor of Maine, who said, "We will see you in court." I am encouraged by the former Minnesota Viking punter Chris Kluwe, a native of California, who protested the installation of a MAGA plaque at a public library in Huntington Beach, California, installed at the direction of the Huntington Beach City Council. I am encouraged by what I suspect will be the briefest tenure of any plaque ever installed in America. I give it a week. In fact, I have a little betting pool on the side. If you want to join in that, proceeds will be given to a worthy cause. I am encouraged. I am encouraged. I hope you are too. For to be discouraged is to think ourselves alone in this moment, battling this tyranny alone. To be discouraged is to be like Elijah, forgetting God is raising up other prophets, other lovers of decency and good. To be discouraged is to forget that the mills of God grind slowly. They do grind slowly, but they grind exceedingly fine. Be good Quakers. Never give up. Instead, look up. Look up. Speak up. And when needed, rise up and act up.
If all hearts are clear, now is our first opportunity to do some good in the world, make some change. We're going to gather food for the hungry. So if we can have some folks come gather some baskets. You can also make financial contributions in the plates at the back and on fairfieldfriends.org. While we collect our food, we're going to sing joyfully hymn number 119, They'll Know We Are Christians by Our Love.
If you'll rise as you're able. I was curious. I've always loved this hymn, and I just looked it up because this hymnal doesn't have historic information in the back, which I wish, but it's okay. And I've always thought it was really old, and it was actually written in the 1960s or early 70s by a priest on the south, or a parish priest on the south side of Chicago who was really involved in the Chicago Civil Rights Movement. He wrote it in A-flat pentatonic, which I think gives it that old quality, just 5 pitches, which all kinds of civilizations have used for thousands and thousands of years, and in Western and everywhere else, music. And one of my, probably the best conductor I've ever played under was my college band director, Dr. Spinazzola. And he always told us that when you have rhythm, where all of a sudden there's a weighted note, like in this we have so many quarter notes and then a half note for 2 beats. Like, do something with that, you know, like add a little weight to it, add a little vibrato, add a little volume, be sensitive. And I think he did such a beautiful job. He wrote this piece for a youth chorus he was running, Peter Schultes. And all of the words that land on half notes are so powerful. They're action verbs or words of unity and words of love. So I think let's keep that in mind, the weight of the words and the weight of how it falls within the music as we sing.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Amanda and John. And friends, for being with us today and for staying for community and good food. Thank you. Well, those rabbits of Mr. Hoban's, there were, I think, 5 or 6 of them, and he nursed them all to maturity. So I remember for much of my childhood walking down the street and seeing rabbits everywhere in Mr. Hoban's yard. He had never been a man to plant a garden, but once you save somebody, you feel an obligation to care for them and to make sure their future is secure. And so he planted what became one of the largest gardens in our neighborhood, given over totally to his rabbits. Thus, the lesson is clear, friends. Look closely this week for those who are battered and take them in and plant them a garden. Plant them a garden so that they might live too. Amen. Turn and greet friends.